Hello, welcome back here in Cayden's Weather Center. Today is August 30th. We're paying attention to the tropics right now here as we do have that tropical wave still continuing on right now here out in the Atlantic. We're paying attention to it very, very closely here. We can definitely see a lot of deep convection was blowing up earlier this morning. Now kind of to dissipate a little bit with the thunderstorms, but that is usually what we see with these type of tropical systems as they continue to get a little bit stronger. Still a very elongated storm though, I would say, before it is continuing to move off over here to the west, and we're going to continue to watch that very, very closely as it does approach the Caribbean here and the Lesser Antilles Islands. Taking a look at the true color though, and what we're paying attention with the true color, we're going to obviously see that there is a lot of clouds that we can obviously see in this region right here on the eastern side of the storm. Then we have a little bit off the convection right over here. It does seem like maybe we're seeing a little bit of a spin right in here, so that could be something that we want to keep an eye out on just in case as well. But right now our biggest areas of the storms are over here more on the eastern side of this storm here and near where the center is. It's going to be a little bit harder to still consider seeing where the center exactly is, and that's why the models will probably do a lot of flip-flop and all of that, as it is still a tropical wave and does not have any close low or anything like that. Heading into the water vapor though, this is a little bit of a different scenario. We can clearly see a lot of moist air that the storm is sitting in right now, and it's going to continue obviously once it moves off. It's going to continue to move into a little bit more of maybe a little bit more of drier air in this region right here, as there is a little bit of drier air off to its north, and we can clearly see that. But it will head into maybe just slight warm or slight dry air here that we can clearly see. But definitely right now it's sitting in some pretty moist air, so not as unfavorable as what we're anticipating right now. The National Hurricane Center does have a huge update that did come in yesterday. This was a little bit more pushed up to the north here a little bit. And also this morning at 2 a.m. we did have an X, so that was in the orange zone, but now saying that it will not most likely form until at least it gets into this region right here just east of the Lesser Antilles, and is expected to go through the Caribbean, which could lead to a possible hurricane, possibly major hurricane. All depends on how warm and everything that Caribbean is, and we'll definitely have to dig into that a little bit more as well. A new area of interest came last night here at the 8 p.m. advisory for a tropical wave that was coming off Africa. Very well organized tropical wave, I would say, as it came off Africa. That has a slight chance of formation right now. Majority of the models kind of bringing that storm out and just kind of curving out into the Atlantic right now. This one is still very, very spread out here with the Atlantic. We can I just want to say something to pay attention to definitely as we go on throughout the next couple of days as we see these models completely change. We could be going to a little bit more off the north here, and we could be seeing maybe a more recurve here, possibly heading into Florida. We could see it go kind of close to the Yucatan, heading into possibly the northern Gulf or the western Gulf, or it could completely miss all of the states and head up to the east quicker. So a lot to really be paying attention to as we go on throughout the next couple of days, and we're really gonna have to keep an eye on these models, especially when the storm goes into the Caribbean. But 40% chance right now throughout the next 7 days, with a 0% chance here of the next 48 hours. Still remains a tropical wave. Gradual development of the system is possible during the next few days, and a tropical depression could form sometime next week while it moves westward, reaching the Lesser Antilles on Monday, and continues to move across the Caribbean Sea through the middle of late part of the week. And that's what the National Hurricane Center is watching and is saying. We'll have to wait for that 2 p.m. advisory. Taking a look here at the European tropical depression probabilities, we can clearly see in the next 48, 96 hours, 72 to 120 hours out, the European model is taking it a little bit more north than what the other models are saying currently right now, but you kind of can clearly still see though this will impact the Lesser Antilles, heading into parts of Puerto Rico possibly, and then parts of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. We could be definitely seeing some possible system heading through your area. Then 96 to 144 hours out, 120 to 166 hour or 168 hours out, we can clearly see there's that other tropical wave that we're paying attention to. Most likely that one will not be impacting much. This is the one that will, has gone through the Lesser Antilles. A little bit of chances, obviously, are still continuing to rise here of Caribbean, of a tropical depression at least forming here. But the European model does bring it off to a little bit more off to the north here, and that's kind of what we're paying attention to very closely here, because could we see that turn happen a little bit quicker here, or could we see it kind of follow what the other models are saying? The European did not do too good on Tropical Storm Debbie, or Hurricane Debbie, but we're going to keep an eye obviously on that very, very closely. Heading to 144, 192 hours out, this is where we see a little bit more of a spread here with the models and the probabilities here. Then we head into 168, 216 hours out. We kind of start to see it curve a little bit more, kind of where Debbie did turn. We're seeing a little bit of a curve there and kind of brings it in to the northern Gulf. So I would definitely say no matter what, the west coast of Florida all the way through Texas and Mexico needs to be on the lookout just in case if we see some changes with this storm very closely. Heading into the GFS here ensembles, we're going to take a look at the GFS ensembles. There it is right there. The time is right over here. You can clearly see this is Tuesday, September 3rd. We can see on Tuesday there's that tropical system that we do have, and then another one coming off Africa. That's something we could be paying attention to. Then we watch it as it heads into the Eastern Caribbean. Some models keep it off to the south here. Some bring it up to the north, which could be, you know, big changes here that we have to continue to watch. Because if it's more to the north, we could be seeing a northern pull soon. You know, a little bit more of a northern track. So if it is off to the north, we're going to see it get pulled off to the north a little bit more quicker. So something to pay attention to. Heading into September 8th. We can clearly see some of the models do bring it up over here. Parts of eastern Bahamas do actually have some go through Puerto Rico here as a possible hurricane. But once again, not a lot of the models saying it goes to the south. So a little bit of concerning here as we continue to watch these models, you know, continue. Not a lot of models bringing it off to the south here of what the GFS model run, which we'll take a look at that in a little bit, has really put. Some models bringing it more just onto in the minute, you know, just into the northern Atlantic, and will just kind of stay there. The European ensembles are a little bit more, you know, having that consistency, and we're going to continue to pay attention to that. You can clearly see, though, by September 2nd, we're seeing a possible low-pressure system starting to form right in here. We're going to keep an eye, obviously, on that. It does head into the eastern central Caribbean here, maybe as a little bit of a weaker system. We have 3 systems that the European will be, you know, really picking up on September 5th here. The Atlantic will be starting to really wake up here, and then we currently see this one's getting pulled off to the north here. This one will get pulled off to the north. This one's our biggest concern here on where it could go. Could we see, you know, possible storms heading into the Gulf of Mexico, possibly Florida? And if we do take a look here at the European ensembles, this does recurve it and possibly brings it into the west coast of Florida here. Some do bring it to the east coast of Florida, but we're starting to see a little bit more of a northern and westward type of push here on what we could see. It all depends on where it is in the Caribbean. If it's more to the north, the quicker the northern turn will happen. And it also depends on the steering of the storm, as, you know, if it moving quicker or is it moving slower than what the models are already anticipating. But I would definitely say if you do live in the west coast of Florida, definitely just keep an eye on it. But right now we could be seeing a lot of changes with these spaghetti models and everything. Heading into the GFS model, let's take a look here at the GFS model run. We're going to currently see this is the 6Z, so this is the most recent one that has come out today here on August 30th. We can clearly see there's our tropical wave that we're paying attention to right in there. That's our area that we want to keep an eye out on as it continues to move off to the west. Then we're watching it, not much happening here in the Caribbean really until September 5th, according to the GFS. Then kind of brings it up right over here in this region right here, kind of bringing it close to the Yucatan, possibly into the Yucatan here as a 970 millibar hurricane here, and then we'll start to weaken a little bit, but really once it gets in that Gulf, 949 millibars here, possibly heading into Louisiana and Texas, kind of where Hurricane Laura made that landfall in 2020. So we want to keep an eye obviously on that. You know, we've been kind of seeing a little bit more of a westward push here with the models, so that could bring it into Louisiana. I would say just in case, definitely, that's why I would say everyone in the Gulf Coast needs to be definitely paying attention to this storm very closely, because we could be seeing different scenarios here. So definitely something. GFS brings it over the Yucatan here around September 8th, and then into Louisiana around September 11th, September 12th. So definitely want to pay attention to that. This is not the exact model run that we're going to be anticipating. We still don't even have a closed low pressure yet, so it's going to take us a little bit to see exactly what we're anticipating. So the GFS, because yesterday the GFS was saying the west coast of Florida was going to get hammered by the storm, and that was in my last video. But right now we're seeing completely different situations. A lot of already tropical moisture is continuing to already fall, so we're going to continue to see that before even the tropical system could get there. So if it did make it to Louisiana and Texas, heavy amounts of rainfall could be happening from here until September 15th over here that we want to keep an eye out, obviously, on possibly reaching up into maybe 2 feet of rain. But right now, I would kind of just take it more as a grain of salt right now until we start to possibly see more of an invest here and it's starting to get a little bit more organized. Heading into the European model, this is a whole different scenario here. You kind of can see there's that low pressure system right in there. Then we head into the Eastern Caribbean. There's our tropical wave. Not much is going on right now, but you kind of can see that this storm really kind of just heads off into Central America here in the Yucatan, parts of Mexico that we're going to be paying attention to as well. So a little bit of, change has really happened here than completely yesterday. So the European model kind of just keeping it off to the west here. There's according to the European, a high pressure that's kind of be blocking it from going north here, so something to be paying attention to. It all depends on that speed, obviously, because we will have a front kind of come down here that could take it and that could help it steer up to the north, but we also have that high pressure that kind of is over the Atlantic right now, so we're going to keep an eye obviously on that. But right now this storm is expected to continue to move off to the west according to the European model. And if we take a look here at the total accumulation of what we're anticipating here, you can clearly see obviously that tropical moisture that's already heading into Louisiana, Texas, still some heavy rainfall, but this storm definitely is not going to do as much rain according to the Euro than the GFS. The CMC model, we're going to keep a look on this one as well, because now we're starting to see a little bit more consistency with the CMC as well. Right now, earlier this morning, this came out and really didn't show much at all forming. Didn't show really anything forming from the storm. So that's kind of why we're seeing a little bit more of interesting, type of patterns here that we've been seeing. Some of these models say, oh, it's not going to form at all. The GFS has been doing that a lot. Hey, it won't form this time, but it will form, the next model run. So it's just a little, crazy to think here on what we could be paying attention to, but the CMC not anticipating much to form right now. So we'll have to wait for the 12Z model to definitely come out. Taking a look at the icon earlier this morning, though, icon possibly brings a tropical system over here off the coast of Texas. Could have a formation right there, and then it kind of just stalls out and heads into Louisiana as maybe a tropical depression, tropical storm. But there's our storm right there, heads into the Lesser Antilles around September 2nd. Then we'll start to continue moving off to the west here, strengthening 970 millibar hurricane here according to the icon model. The question is, does it continue moving off to the west? Does it get pulled off to the north? The big question is still there, and we're going to continue to pay attention to that. But right now, we're obviously going to be keeping an eye out on some of these storms right now that are continuing to blow up for this tropical system here, and the favorability environment that we're going to be anticipating it later on in the future once it starts to get here into the Caribbean. Once it gets into this region right here, we could be seeing a possibility for a tropical storm, or maybe even a possible tropical depression to form over here. So definitely something to be paying attention to if you live in the Gulf Coast here, maybe even the East Coast of the United States. Right now, it is very, very hard to track as these models are not finding a exactly closed low pressure system. So it's a little bit harder because some models will be picking up on a different spin, and we could be seeing a little bit of an interesting situation. But definitely, I would say, stay tuned to your National Hurricane Center. Make sure to check out the models from Tropical Tidbits as well to keep an eye on what we're kind of starting to see here with this tropical system here, that the tropical wave. Once we see a low pressure, I think that's when we'll start to realize on where it could possibly go here. But right now, it's not looking as organized. It is definitely looking a little bit better than it was yesterday in my last video, but it's still continuing to not be as impressive as we would really like to see, to know what the models are wanting to think and all that. So a little bit of time still. We do have a lot of time. It's not moving very quickly, so please make sure you are staying tuned. Make sure to follow my X page down in the description for the latest updates here on this tropical wave, and I will keep you guys updated. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.